Hey guys, this is Danny Boy. So this time around we'll be using the Revenant. The Revenant is a light machine gun, so it is essentially just one step below a minigun, so it is heavy, high capacity, high fire rate, good damage, but low accuracy. So to quickly compare it to the Avenger, heavy capacity, blah 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 blah, higher damage than the Avenger, as you see. Something interesting to note, the Revenant is no longer the highest capacity assault rifle in the game as it was in Mass Effect 2. That title now goes to the Geth Pulse Rifle. Alright, let us try it out. Point blank range fired from the hip. As you can see, just like all the other assault rifles, it does fine at point blank range on full auto for headshots. Let us try short range. It also has a slow reload animation, similarly to the Argus. Short range from the hip, this weapon already does lose effectiveness. I would probably personally just burst for the body, though I suppose you could try full auto for the torso, but we're getting a very large spread. This is certainly going to be less efficient than just bursting for the body, and definitely headshots are out of the question already at short range. So now, from the hip, mid-range. Alright, well we're definitely out of range of full auto at this point. At mid-range, all you can really do is burst for center mass, which seems to be fairly effective. But we're definitely reaching the edge of its effective accuracy. Yep, not looking good. Terrible. Totally ineffective for full auto at mid to long range from the hip. Bursting, probably the same, really. Only maybe 4 shots hitting, 5, 6, nothing spectacular. Let's try long range. Not good. And completely, totally ineffective. Terrible. Of all those shots, only 3 even hit the board, 1 hitting the arm of the target. So, actually, yeah. So I would say this weapon's effective range from the hip is limited to mid, and at mid-range you should be bursting and firing for center mass. You can full auto headshots only at point-blank range, and at short range you should probably be bursting for center mass again, but you can try full auto. It's probably still just less efficient. Might be effective, but it's definitely less efficient. So anyway, let us move on to the sights. As you can see, just like all the other assault rifles, very accurate with the sights at point blank. Let's try short. And I would say you can definitely go for full auto at short range and still get headshots. Certainly you can still get body shots. And that's probably what I would do. I don't think I would bother bursting at short range when aiming down the sights. Alright, good enough. Bad for headshots, good for center mass. And again, bad for headshots, good for center mass. I would say at mid-range, using full auto, you can probably still reliably get center mass shots, but headshots, either way, even bursting, are going to be a problem. So, at mid-range, I would probably just go for full auto and go for center mass. Let's try mid to long. Kick is becoming a problem. Alright, mid to long range, I would say... Well, this was an entire clip. This was about half of a clip. So at the end of the day, their effectiveness is pretty comparable. Mid to long range, again, seems to really be pushing this weapon's effective accuracy. But you could probably full auto, you could probably burst, it would be about the same effectiveness. It's just... this is less efficient. Full auto is less efficient. I don't know if I would bother. Try long range. Bursting seems alright. Full auto is terrible, though. I suppose you could still burst at long range and reliably get shots. That's pretty good. So, with just the sights, I would say you could full auto headshots up to short range. Then by mid range, you could full auto body shots. And then at mid to long or long range, you should probably just be bursting for center mass. Alright. You might be able to full auto at mid to long range, but I would probably just burst to conserve ammunition. So scope. Oops. Point blank range with the scope. As you can see, it might give us some slightly tighter groupings than with the sights, but really not necessary. Personally, I feel like the scope might be detrimental to this weapon, because you do tend to use it at shorter ranges on full auto, and that is just harder to do at point-blank range when you have a scope. It's just doesn't really suit it. But some players do enjoy using this weapon at longer ranges, so more power to you if you are one of them. Anyway, short range bursting. Again, not really noticing a huge difference when compared to just the sights. Not a very good grouping, though, for the head. But I imagine that that is just a fluke. Let's confirm. It's actually harder to counteract this weapon's recoil when you have a scope, in my opinion. Yeah, that's better. So, it's about the same, I would say, at short range. With the scope. Personally, I really do not like a scope on this weapon. It makes the recoil much harder to deal with. At least when you are going full auto. If you plan on bursting more with this weapon, then yes, a scope is useful, but when you're going full auto, it's just really hard to keep on target. I would still recommend just going full auto for center mass at mid-range. Personally. So, mid to long. Looking very poor. Center mass was alright. Definitely a lot better than full auto. So, at mid to long, again, same thing, just I would burst for center mass. Not bother with full auto. That's just not happening. The recoil is so intense. Good enough. So again, if you must fire at long range, go for center mass shots, go in bursts, do not bother with full auto. So really, the scope does not increase this weapon's effective range. It doesn't make its groupings really noticeably tighter. Point blank from the hip, I would probably go full auto, aim for the head. At short range, I would fire in bursts, aim for center mass, and beyond that, I don't think I would bother from the hip. Maybe firing in bursts for mid-range and just aim for center mass, but probably not a good use of your time, and not bothering at mid to long or long range, and either with the scope or the sights, just full auto for headshots at point blank, at short range. At mid range, probably just going for center mass if you must go for full auto. And even in bursts, you're really not going to be getting many headshots at mid-range. Beyond mid-range, mid to long, you should just be firing in bursts and aiming for center mass. And again, personally, I think the scope can be detrimental for this weapon if you do prefer to use it at close ranges. But if you prefer to just fire it in bursts more, then it can be helpful for the longer ranges. So it's really up to player preference. Alright guys, well, thanks for watching. This was the Revenant. Have a good one.